My name is Elizabeth Brock Jones.
My name's Patrick Jones.
I'm originally from Wisconsin and he's originally from Tennessee, but we now live in Oregon. We got married 7 years ago, and when we got married, he had been the one in the relationship who wanted to have kids more and faster than I did. And I originally had told him when we got married, we were 27 when we got married, that we could have kids at 30. And then 30 rolled around and I was like, just kidding, I'm not ready. And then 32 rolled around and I was like, whoa, still not ready. But then I had always really wanted to adopt and had shared that with him when we were dating, and he was really open to the idea. So at 32, we started the conversation of adopting before thinking about having biological children. So yeah, we just started researching and looking at agencies and figuring out if adoption was right for us. And we kind of went through every part of the adoption process, I feel like. Like, we started by researching international, and then we moved to foster care, and then we ended up with domestic infant adoption. So
that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, I think when we were researching Oregon adoption agencies, there was a couple that we liked, but when we reached out to them, some of the feedback we got wasn't quite what we'd hoped. So after doing some further research, Liz found Gladney, and yeah, I was born in McKinney, Texas, so any excuse to come back down here, I definitely take.
I'd kind of very early on thought about it like a filter process, I would say. So we had a couple things that we really wanted in our agency, and realistically we didn't know if all of them were possible. But we were looking for an agency that didn't have a strong religious affiliation or didn't seem too religious. I'm not religious, he did grow up religious. We were looking for an agency that would help with expecting parent expenses. We didn't want to field those expenses because we didn't want our adoption to feel transactional, but we wanted them to be covered. So that was really important. And then the last thing was just like openness, transparency, and honesty on the website. There's a lot of agencies out there that don't tell you anything on their website and they force you to contact them, which is fine, but I wanted an agency that was super upfront about their process, about their costs, about their services that they offer both expecting parents and adoptive parents.
Yeah, Gladney just had a very professional approach and setup, and like Liz mentioned, webpage, and every email or every question we had was answered quickly and thoroughly. And
I feel like our process was super straightforward. I think one thing that actually helped kick it off was Gladney's orientation, which was awesome in terms of being super informative about the process, what we could expect. One thing we loved is that they didn't try to sugarcoat things. They didn't try to sugarcoat the cost. They didn't try to sugarcoat things that could happen in the process between failed adoptions or the emotions. Like, we loved that they brought in a birth parent panel and they had an adoptive family that was there that had had failed adoptions. We loved that. So it felt like we weren't blindsided at any point in the process. But then after leaving orientation, I feel like, I say we, but I hit the ground running in terms of like all of the paperwork. They actually joked in orientation about how like one person generally does all of the paperwork, and that is very true in our family. I did the majority of it. Gladney has like a great portal where they keep track of all of the documents that you need. They're super upfront about like, yes, that's an accepted document or it's not. There was nothing in the process that felt unclear. Because Gladney is in Texas and we live in Oregon, we couldn't use Gladney as a home study provider. And so they helped us find a home study agency that worked with the like format that Gladney needed. And our home study, again, super straightforward, very easy process. I feel like we'd read a bunch of horror stories about home studies and it was not like that at all. I didn't feel like they were intrusive on our lives. I didn't feel like they were investigating us in any way, shape, or form. Like, I think they wanted us to be able to adopt. So that was great. But yeah, after that, like, the hardest part is the waiting, and we knew that was gonna be a thing, and we knew we were probably gonna be at some point impatient with it, but you know, we actually entered this process without history or knowledge of infertility, and so I think we were probably a little bit more patient than most people, knowing that it's like the right match is just gonna take time, so.
You know, Gladney gives like a rough timeline, like kind of what you can expect. Like, there was plenty of time for us to prepare a nursery, you know, all that kind of stuff. I don't know, overall it was very smooth, so.
Yeah, I'm almost hesitant to say that because I think our process was ridiculously smooth. Like, we only had like maybe one slight hiccup in the entire thing, but other than that, I feel like the words I use to describe our adoption across the board are like better than planned. You know, we we planned for things to go wrong, to stall, to do all that stuff, and it just really didn't happen. So as we were talking about what type of backgrounds we would be open to with an expecting mom, I think, you know, we tried to give a lot of grace in this situation because there's a lot of factors that come into play. So there's mental health, physical health, there's drug and alcohol use.
I think ultimately we got to the point where, and also after like reflecting on our own family, like health history and things like that, and like we both have, I don't know, family members with health issues.
Yeah.
That, you know, so reading somebody's family history just like on bullet points is kind of overwhelming, but then if you just like look in the mirror, you do the same thing. So while it was overwhelming initially, I think like Liz said, willing to discuss most things.
And especially like when it's not our pregnancy, we don't get to dictate what happens. And so we just had to be willing to give grace in the situation and willing to discuss based on the scenario. So our matching process, I feel like, was pretty abnormal, like I said, better than planned. Got a call from our caseworker basically saying, hey, we have a expecting mom who may be interested in matching with your family, and here's the information we know about her. And they told us in orientation, if we ever call and ask for both people on the phone, you know why we're calling. And so this was the phone call that we'd been waiting for 13 months. And of course, Pat is at work and had texted me and said, I'm on the Harvester all day, I won't answer my phone. Crap, okay. So I just told our caseworker, I said, like, that's okay, like, can you just tell me and I'll write it all down and I'll tell Pat when he gets home from work. So she's going through this information, this bulleted list of information that she has gotten from this expecting mom, and as everything she reads off, I'm like, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Like, we talked about all of these things, and I told our caseworker, I said, I can guarantee that we would agree to this match, but I'm not gonna say that for sure without talking to my husband, so let us get back to you. And then he came home, we went for a walk, we agreed it would be a great match for us. And we had known, they had told us at orientation, like on average, they show 6 families at a time to an expecting mom. And so when we called back, we thought, okay, this is like, you know, this is the first time we're getting this call, don't get too excited. There's 5 other families in this process with us, most likely. And we called back and our caseworker was, great, you guys are matched. She wasn't looking at any other families. We just tell you that so that you don't feel pressure to match with her. Like, we wanted to be a match on both sides of the equation. So as long as you guys are ready to move forward, you are officially matched. So yeah, it happened much faster than planned, and it was the first call we ever got about being shown to a family, and that was our match story.
That's faster than I remember it.
That's exactly how it happened.
No, I remember it happening over like a couple days. But anyway, like it was fast.
Yes,
But
the process of being matched happened fast. The week that followed was the slow part.
okay,
Yeah.
that could be. When did we talk to Marissa the first time?
A week after we got matched with her.
Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty soon after.
Yeah.
That was a phone call that was, again, smoother than we like could have hoped. Like it was kind of like almost like a blind date phone call sort of thing. Like, but we were, I don't know, I think we were immediately very comfortable with each other.
Yeah, the first like, I'm gonna say 2 minutes on the phone call was like a blind date, like awkward, like not sure who asked the questions, whether we should be asking them or she should be asking them. Our caseworker did kind of like prepare us for how to lead that conversation, and actually it was the opposite. It was, you shouldn't lead the conversation, you should let her ask questions, whatever she's comfortable with sharing, any questions she has. But yeah, I had also kind of assumed that our caseworker would be on that call with us, and they weren't, which was great. I'm glad that there wasn't like, you know, not feeling like there was a parent on the call. Yeah. But yeah, the first like minute was awkward, and then from there, like the conversation really flowed. Honestly, we were joking around with each other. Like, it just felt very comfortable very quickly. And then we actually, after that phone call, we agreed to fly down to Texas to meet her. So we chatted on the phone, and then we had been texting back and forth through Google Voice like multiple times a week. So we had known each other pretty well by the time we came to Texas to meet her. There was probably like 6 weeks between the phone call and meeting her in person. And it was like really nice to meet her in person, but it was also kind of funny because the caseworkers were there, they were asking questions that we had already talked about. So it was almost like the caseworkers were like a little bit behind on our relationship, which ended up being the theme of our relationship the entire way through, because Marissa and I just got along so well. We were constantly texting each other. But yeah, it was great. We ended up sitting there for like an hour and a half, had great lunch, great conversation. And then I loved that at the very end of the lunch, the caseworkers said, do you guys want to get a picture together? So we do have a picture with Marissa, and Marissa's actually pregnant with Zoe, which is very cute. And then as we walked outside, we let Marissa know that we were actually going to be in town till we were leaving the next day, but our flight was at like 2 o'clock. So we had all morning if she wanted to meet up again. And so we ended up going to Applebee's with just her, without the caseworkers, and that was a great way to like further the conversation and get to know each other even deeper. And it was great to just
Felt
get
more
to know
casual.
her. I think out of meeting her in person, we felt so confident in our match. She asked what we wanted to name her daughter, and we had told her the name Zoe, and then ever since then she just always referred to her baby as Zoe. And so like she gave us all of this confidence in our match that she didn't need to, and it was great.
It's very, very reassuring.
Yeah, very reassuring. Our hospital experience started off very slow because we had kept hearing from Marissa that she was measuring bigger than they thought. Like the due date was essentially a moving target, and we didn't really know when we were supposed to be in Texas because we were flying from Oregon. Like everything was kind of up in the air. So we ended up getting here the day that they had talked about inducing her, and then they ended up not inducing her for another 6 days. So we spent 6 days in Texas kind of on a mini vacation
Hanging out.
before Marissa actually ended up going to the hospital to be induced. And then she was there pretty much all day. We were actually getting ready to go to bed. It was 9:30 at night. We hadn't heard from her. Like, we'd heard that progress was really slow. Our caseworker was like, she'll probably deliver tomorrow. And then we got a text from her that was like, things are progressing very quickly. You should get here right now. Okay. So we had just been getting ready for bed. We switched focus, got in the car, got to the hospital, and we did this part wrong because we'd been in Texas for 6 days and had never thought to go to the hospital and figure out where we were going. And so, like, it wasn't a very smooth process getting into the labor and delivery ward because we didn't know where we were going in the hospital. The hospital was under construction, but eventually we made it up there, and the nurse was like, oh yeah, go right on back. This is her room. I was like, well, we know Marissa, but like, we're also not gonna walk into a room while she's in active labor. And we were very lucky that they ended up putting us in the room right next door to her. So whether she wanted us to or not, we heard the whole delivery, which was amazing. We were only in the hospital for about 40 minutes before she gave birth. And yeah, we heard everything. We heard them tell her to push. And then about an hour later, we got to go in and meet Zoe for the first time. And it was very adorable and special. And yeah, our hospital stay, again, better than planned. They ended up moving us up to the postpartum
Recovery.
unit. Yeah, the recovery ward, and we got a room across the hall, essentially, from Marissa. And we, I think, really did the hospital stay in tandem with her. We shared feeding responsibilities, so we would switch off between breastfeeding and formula feeding because we knew the benefits of breastfeeding, and Marissa was super open to it. But we also wanted Zoe to know that, like, once we leave the hospital, she's gonna be all formula feeding from there on out. But yeah, it was really great and special, and like, we did it in tandem with Marissa, and we got cleared to leave or discharged like 6 hours before Marissa did, but we were like, we're just gonna wait. Like, we wanna leave with her. We didn't want her to feel like we were abandoning her, running off with this child. Like, we wanted her to walk out with us, and it was
That was ever in question.
very funny because I had to be wheeled out of the hospital because I was holding Zoe, and Marissa, who had given birth to Zoe, walked out of the hospital. So, yeah.
I'd say being right next door when she was born was like the thing that I'll remember is like we heard her first cry, like, kind of thing. Like we knew when she was here. So
Yeah.
it was, I don't know, that was just the most special part, I believe.
Yeah. I think we were open to both an open and a closed adoption. Honestly, I'm a very social person, and like, I think it would be really hard for me to not have an open adoption. Like, my go-to when Zoe does something for the first time is like, I tell Pat, but then I also tell Marissa. Like, it is, oh my God, Zoe had her first word, or oh my God, Zoe had her first steps. Like, they get the text like 3 seconds apart. I would have a very hard time not having an open adoption, but of course, like, it's what the expecting parent or birth parent wants. Like, we would have honored and respected that, but I'm very happy that we have an open adoption.
I think we would probably, I preferred an open adoption, but I think I would have been totally fine with a closed adoption, and just being kind of open-minded about the whole thing and knowing everybody kind of has a different story anyway. I think ultimately it'll be more beneficial to everyone involved that it's an open adoption, because the more information, the better.
Yeah. And we've talked about with Marissa, like, as Zoe gets older and has an opinion, we're just going to take her lead. If she wants to come visit Marissa more than once a year that we've planned on, that's fine. If she wants to FaceTime Marissa, that's fine. Like, we already do those things, but as Zoe has an opinion and, you know, knows more, like actually knows more about her adoption and her process, I think we will take her lead when she has a say.
Yeah, as long as it's healthy for everyone, we will just stay the course.
So our open adoption, I think Gladney talks about like a contract of the heart, so not legally enforceable, but we had agreed to quarterly updates in the form of 10 photos or videos, and then like a written update as to what's happening. So essentially 4 times a year we'd agreed to talk. I think in the 8 days that we were in Texas and Zoe was born, we probably talked at least 4 times. It has definitely evolved based on our comfort level with each other. Like, Marissa is a friend, she's like family, she's Zoe's mom as well. And so now, to this point, we have shared over 1,200 photos with Marissa. We text, honestly, multiple times a week. Marissa and I are writing a book together on our process. Like, we FaceTime. She asked us if we wanted to FaceTime the other day. Like, we let her take the lead if she wants to FaceTime, but we also FaceTime on like holidays or Zoe's birthday or, you know, Christmas or Mother's Day. Like, I think we kind of try to do things in tandem, and because she's in Texas and we don't see her super often, like, for us it's easy to keep in contact by sending pictures and videos and text messages.
You take care of so much like that side of it. Not that I don't talk to Marissa, but like most of the communication is just between the two of them, and like she's always got her phone out taking pictures. I take a small amount of pictures. Like, you'll see me in a lot of pictures because she's the one like taking photos all the time. But yeah, I don't. Not that I don't contribute anything, but it's between the two of them.
Yeah.
That's the most.
I think it's just go with your gut. What feels right for you and your family, what feels right for your adoptive child. You know, we trust Marissa. We trust her with the photos that we're sending. We trust her to introduce people into Zoe's life. We're taking her lead if she's comfortable with that, because we trust her. We're comfortable with that. So I think it's really just trusting your gut, what you're comfortable sharing. Like, I would never share anything that we didn't feel comfortable sharing, but honestly, there hasn't really been any of that. Like, Marissa sees the good and the bad. She knows when Zoe's been sick or in the hospital. She even mentioned that the other day, that she appreciated that all the pictures on our Google Drive, which is where we share everything, that they weren't all just pictures of Zoe smiling. There was pictures of her crying or when she was sick. Like, I don't know, it's just what you're comfortable with.
Yeah. She just feels like any other family member, so we share the same amount of information because that's what the relationship feels like.
Yeah. Yeah, finalization day was honestly one of the coolest days of our life, like probably better than our wedding.
It was fun.
Because like, our family came, you know, the judge asked all these questions, like, do you promise to love Zoe forever and ever? Yes, of course. But she had asked everybody in the room, like, are you guys her grandparents? Who are you? When the judge found out that Marissa was Zoe's birth mom, she had her come up and stand with her at the, like, on the stand, I guess. And her one daughter, the other daughter had left the room crying at some point. But yeah, Marissa and her other daughter got to ring the gavel for 3, 2, 1 adoption finalized. And that is like the coolest thing ever. Makes me cry just thinking about it.
It's funny that you remember that, because we have pictures of it, obviously, but that.
You don't remember that?
I mean, I remember it happening.
Oh,
but
so
it just,
cool.
That was a lot of fun. It was good to have like all of our family down here.
It was a cool day. I can't wait
to
do it again.
Just supportive environment across the board. So yeah, it was great to just have everybody here, everybody on the same page.
Yeah, it was a cool day.